What if I told you that ancient masters from completely different civilizations separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time all discovered the same shocking truth about what happens beyond death? I'm talking about Egyptian high priests who spent decades preparing for their journey through the Duat, Tibetan monks who mapped the intermediate states with scientific precision, Greek mystery school initiates who underwent ritual deaths to experience the afterlife while still alive, Hindu sages who documented the exact mechanics of consciousness transfer, and Mayan shamans who developed technologies for navigating between worlds. While most people today live in complete terror and uncertainty about what comes after this life, frantically avoiding the topic or clinging to vague religious platitudes, these ancient wisdom keepers possess detailed, practical maps of the afterlife journey that were more precise than our modern GPS systems. They knew exactly what to expect, how to navigate each phase, and most importantly, how to use death as the ultimate opportunity for spiritual liberation. This knowledge could completely transform not just how you approach dying, but how you live every single day with purpose, fearlessness, and unshakable inner peace. Over the past 8 months, I've immersed myself in this research like my life depended on it, because frankly, it does. I've studied over 200 ancient texts in their original languages, from the Egyptian pyramid texts dating back 4,400 years to the Tibetan Bardo manuscripts hidden in mountain monasteries. I've consulted with leading scholars at Harvard, Oxford, and the University of Virginia who specialize in consciousness research and comparative religion. I've analyzed death rituals and preparation techniques from 12 different civilizations spanning 5,000 years of human history, from the elaborate mummification processes of ancient Egypt to the advanced meditation practices of Himalayan masters. What I discovered will not just challenge everything you think you know about death and dying. It will reveal that our modern Western understanding of consciousness and the afterlife is primitive compared to what ancient civilizations knew. In this video, I'm going to reveal the 7 universal principles that ancient masters from Egypt, Tibet, Greece, India, China, and the Americas all independently discovered about your next life. I'll show you the specific practical techniques they developed to prepare for the ultimate transition that awaits us all. And I'll provide you with a complete roadmap that you can start implementing today to ensure that when your time comes, you'll navigate death not as a victim of circumstance, but as a master of consciousness, prepared for the greatest adventure of your existence. But before we dive into these life-changing revelations, there's something most people completely overlook about death that could determine whether your next existence is filled with bliss or suffering. It's something so fundamental that ancient Egyptian texts called it the first great secret, yet modern medicine completely ignores it. This single oversight has condemned millions of souls to wander confused through the afterlife realms, unable to find their way to higher states of existence. The ancient masters knew that without understanding this principle, all other spiritual preparation becomes meaningless. Picture this scenario. You're lying on your deathbed, your family gathered around, machines beeping in the background. Suddenly, you feel a strange pulling sensation, as if you're being drawn out of your body. But instead of the peaceful transition you might have expected, you find yourself in a state of complete panic and confusion. Your consciousness doesn't simply vanish like a candle being blown out instead. You're suddenly aware that you exist in a completely different reality, but you have no idea what's happening or where you are. This is the terrifying experience that awaits unprepared souls. Ancient Egyptian texts describe these confused spirits as wanderers in the Duat, consciousness trapped between worlds, because they never learned the fundamental truth about what they actually are. The Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks of souls who become lost in the Bardo for what could be thousands of years, experiencing nightmarish visions because they mistake temporary appearances for ultimate reality. Now imagine the opposite scenario. As your physical body begins to shut down, you recognize exactly what's happening because you've trained for this moment your entire life. You understand that you are not your body, not your thoughts, not your emotions. You are pure consciousness temporarily inhabiting a physical form. When the body dies, you don't die with it. Instead, you consciously withdraw your awareness from the physical vehicle, like a driver stepping out of a car, and you navigate this transition with the skill and confidence of a master navigator sailing familiar waters. This is what the ancient masters experienced. They didn't fear death because they understood it as simply changing clothes, dropping one temporary form and taking on another. The Egyptian pharaohs spent decades preparing for this moment through elaborate rituals and consciousness training. Tibetan monks practiced Phawa consciousness transference until they could literally project their awareness out of their bodies at will. Greek initiates underwent ritual deaths in mystery schools to experience the transition while still alive, ensuring they would be prepared when the real moment came. The difference between these two scenarios isn't luck or divine favor, it's preparation and understanding. The ancient masters knew which scenario leads to liberation and which leads to endless cycles of confusion and suffering. The first universal principle discovered by ancient masters is what I call the consciousness transfer principle. This isn't just some philosophical concept. It's the foundational understanding that determines everything else about your death experience and what comes after. Unlike our modern Western view that consciousness is merely a byproduct of brain chemistry that dies when the brain stops functioning, every advanced ancient civilization understood that consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality itself. It's not produced by the physical body. Rather, the physical body is a temporary vessel that consciousness inhabits and eventually abandons. Let me break down how different cultures understood this principle. The ancient Egyptians developed the most sophisticated understanding of consciousness transfer in human history. Their concept of the ka, the hayo, the vital essence that animates the body, was understood to be immortal and indestructible. When the physical body died, the ka would journey through the duet, the realm between worlds, following precise pathways mapped out in texts like the pyramid texts and the Book of Coming Forth by Day. But the Egyptians went further. They understood that consciousness wasn't just one thing. They identified multiple aspects: the ba, the ka, the ak, and others. Each aspect had specific functions during life and specific destinies after death. The Tibetan tradition developed what might be the most practical approach to consciousness transfer. The Bardo Thodol, often called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, literally translates to liberation through hearing in the intermediate state. This recognizes that consciousness not only continues after physical death, but remains actively aware and capable of learning. The text provides detailed instructions for navigating three distinct bardos or intermediate states: the moment of death, the experience of ultimate reality, and the process of seeking rebirth. The ancient Greeks, particularly through their mystery schools, understood the sight of the soul as immortal and divine in nature. The Orphic mysteries taught that the soul undergoes purification between incarnations, and the Eleusinian mysteries promised initiates that they would not fear death because they had already experienced the transition in ritual form. Plato's dialogues, particularly the Phaedo, provide philosophical frameworks for understanding consciousness as independent of physical form. Hindu traditions developed perhaps the most comprehensive maps of consciousness states and their relationship to physical embodiment. The Upanishads describe the Atman individual consciousness as identical to Brahman universal consciousness. Death is understood not as ending, but as the Atman, discarding worn-out clothing and putting on new garments. The Bhagavad Gita famously uses this analogy to help overcome the fear of death. But here's what's crucial to understand. These weren't just religious beliefs or philosophical speculations. These were sophisticated technologies of consciousness developed by people who had directly experienced consciousness transfer and mapped its principles with scientific precision. Here's what you can do starting today to begin understanding and preparing for your own consciousness transfer the Egyptian consciousness separation practice. Tonight before sleep, lie flat on your back with your arms at your sides. Close your eyes and begin to systematically relax every part of your body, starting with your toes and working upward. Once your body feels completely relaxed, begin to visualize your awareness as a bright point of light in the center of your chest. Don't force anything, just gently imagine this light slowly expanding and beginning to lift out of your physical form. Start with just a few inches above your body, maintaining the visualization for 5 to 10 minutes. Over time, practice extending this visualization further, floating above your bedroom, above your house, above your city. The key is to maintain a sense of continuity of awareness while allowing your identification with the physical form to loosen. Advanced dream state training. Ancient masters knew that dreams provide the perfect training ground for consciousness transfer because in dreams, your awareness naturally operates independently of physical constraints. Keep a detailed dream journal for the next 30 days, writing down every dream you can remember immediately upon waking. But go deeper than just recording dreams. Begin to notice patterns in how your consciousness functions in the dream state. Notice how you can be in multiple locations, how the laws of physics don't apply, how you can communicate telepathically, how you can transform the dream environment through intention alone. These aren't just random dream phenomena. They're previews of capabilities your consciousness will have after death. Practice reality checks throughout your waking day. Look at your hands several times each day and ask, "Am I dreaming?" Look at digital clocks twice in quick succession. In dreams, the time will often change between looks. These reality checks will eventually carry over into your dreams, helping you become lucid. Once lucid, practice the consciousness transfer exercises while dreaming. The Tibetan clear light meditation. This is perhaps the most important practice for consciousness transfer preparation. Find a completely dark room, use blackout curtains if necessary. Sit comfortably and allow your eyes to adjust to the darkness. Instead of trying to see anything, focus on the space between thoughts in your mind. Ancient Tibetan texts teach that everyone experiences what they call the clear light of death, a moment when consciousness recognizes its fundamental nature without any mental obscurations. By practicing recognition of this clear light while alive, you prepare to recognize it at death and use it as a gateway to liberation. Start with 10-minute sessions and gradually extend to 30 minutes or more. The goal isn't to achieve any particular state, but to become familiar with pure awareness, its self-consciousness without any content, awareness without any object. Daily consciousness flexibility training. Throughout your day, practice shifting your identification away from your physical body and toward pure awareness. When you're walking, occasionally ask yourself, what is aware of this walking? When you're eating, ask, what is aware of these tastes? When you're thinking, ask, what is aware of these thoughts? This isn't philosophical speculation, it's practical. Training in recognizing that you are the awareness that observes all experiences, not the experiences themselves. This recognition is crucial for consciousness transfer because it helps you identify with the aspect of yourself that continues after death, rather than the aspects that dissolve with the body. Now, mastering consciousness transfer is absolutely crucial, but there's something even more important that determines the quality of your next existence. It's a principle that scared ancient rulers so much they tried to hide this knowledge from their own people, because they realized that if everyone understood this law, the entire social order would collapse overnight. What they discovered is that every single thought, emotion, and action you've ever had is recorded in what they called the cosmic ledger. And this record determines everything about where your consciousness goes next. Imagine discovering that every single action, thought, and intention you've ever had throughout your entire life is recorded not in some external cosmic book, but woven directly into the very fabric of your consciousness itself. Not recorded by some external judge sitting on a throne in the clouds, but encoded as energetic patterns that become the steering mechanism for your consciousness after death. In one scenario, you die carrying massive karmic debts, unresolved conflicts with family members, harm you've caused to others through your words or actions, years of selfish behavior, patterns of anger and hatred, willful ignorance about your impact on the world around you. These aren't just moral failures. They're energetic imbalances that act like magnets, drawing your consciousness toward experiences and circumstances that match these negative patterns. Your next existence becomes determined by these dark energetic signatures, potentially trapping you in cycles of suffering that could span multiple lifetimes. Ancient texts describe souls who become trapped in what the Egyptians called the lake of fire, not a literal place of burning, but a state of consciousness where negative karmic patterns create endless cycles of pain and confusion. The Hindu Puranas describe hellish realms where consciousness experiences the effects of negative actions magnified and prolonged. The Tibetan teachings speak of beings reborn in the hungry ghost realm, where insatiable desires create constant torment. Now imagine the alternative scenario. You've learned the ancient art of karmic purification and consciousness cultivation. You understand that every interaction with another being is an opportunity to either create positive or negative karmic momentum. You've developed the ability to transform negative karmic patterns while still alive, turning past mistakes into wisdom and compassion. You've learned to live in what the ancient Egyptians called mat, perfect harmony with cosmic order. When you die with this purified consciousness, instead of being dragged down by heavy karmic debts, you're lifted by the positive momentum you've created. Your consciousness is naturally drawn toward realms of greater beauty, wisdom, and opportunity. You might be reborn into circumstances that support your spiritual development, or if you're advanced enough, you might transcend the need for physical rebirth altogether. This isn't wishful thinking or religious fantasy. Ancient masters developed precise technologies for understanding and working with these karmic principles. They knew that the quality of your death experience and your subsequent rebirth is not determined by chance. Fate, or the whims of external gods, is determined by the energetic balance you've created through your choices during life. The second universal principle is what I call the karmic debt settlement principle. But we need to understand karma not as some vague moral concept, but as an energetic science with specific laws and practical applications. The Sanskrit word karma literally means action, but ancient masters understood it as referring to the energetic consequences of all actions, physical, mental, and emotional, that create momentum patterns continuing across lifetimes. Every tradition developed sophisticated understandings of how these energetic patterns work. The ancient Egyptian concept of mat represented the cosmic principle of truth, justice, and harmony. In the famous weighing of the heart ceremony, depicted in the Book of the Dead, the deceased's heart is weighed against the feather of mat. This isn't just symbolic. It represents the actual energetic assessment that occurs when consciousness separates from the physical body. If your consciousness carries the heavy burden of actions that created discord and harm, this weight determines your experience in the afterlife realms. But the Egyptians went much deeper than simple moral judgment. They understood that mat wasn't just about following rules. It was about aligning your consciousness with the fundamental harmony of the universe itself. They developed 42 negative confession statements, like, I have not caused pain, I have not caused weeping, I have not polluted the water, that covered every aspect of how individual actions affect the cosmic order. The Hindu and Buddhist traditions developed the most comprehensive understanding of karmic mechanics. They recognized that karma operates on multiple levels: physical actions, speech, and mental formations. They understood that intention is crucial. The same action performed with different motivations creates completely different karmic results. The Tibetan teachings provide incredibly detailed maps of how different types of karma ripen. They describe how some karmic seeds ripen immediately in this life, others ripen in the intermediate state between lives, and still others remain dormant for multiple lifetimes before manifesting. They developed practices for purifying negative karma and cultivating positive karma with surgical precision. But here's what most modern interpretations completely miss. Karma isn't just about individual moral behavior. Ancient masters understood karma as a fundamental law of energetic physics, governing how consciousness interacts with reality itself. The ancient Greeks, through the Orphic mysteries, understood that souls carry the consequences of their actions through multiple incarnations, and that purification between lives is necessary for spiritual evolution. The Eleusinian mysteries promised initiates liberation from the wheel of necessity, the cycle of karma that binds souls to repeated incarnations. Even indigenous traditions worldwide recognize these principles. Native American teachings about the consequences of actions extending 7 generations into the future. Aboriginal Australian concepts of the dream time, where all actions ripple through the fabric of reality. Mayan understanding of cosmic cycles, where individual and collective karma plays out across vast time scales. Here are the specific practices you can implement immediately to begin settling your karmic debts and creating positive momentum for your next existence. The Tibetan Tonglen practice for karmic transformation. This practice literally means taking and giving, and is considered one of the most powerful methods for transforming negative karma into positive spiritual momentum. Sit comfortably and breathe naturally. As you inhale, visualize taking in all the suffering of the world, not just your own pain, but the pain of all beings everywhere. Don't resist it or try to fix it. Simply breathe it in with compassion. As you exhale, visualize sending out relief, happiness, and whatever those beings need most. Send out love, healing, prosperity, wisdom, whatever feels most appropriate. This practice works because it reverses the normal self-centered pattern that creates negative karma. Instead of always trying to get what you want and avoid what you don't want, you're actively taking on the burdens of others and giving away your own good fortune. Start with 15 minutes daily and gradually extend to 30 minutes or more. You can do this practice anywhere in meditation, while walking, even while stuck in traffic. The key is to make it a spontaneous response to encountering any form of suffering. The Egyptian Daily Mat Assessment. Each evening, conduct a thorough review of your day from the perspective of cosmic harmony. The ancient Egyptians understood that consciousness is constantly creating karmic patterns, and daily purification prevents the accumulation of negative momentum. Ask yourself these specific questions based on the ancient Egyptian negative confessions. Did my actions today increase harmony or create discord in the world? Did I speak truth or spread confusion and lies? Did I act from love and compassion or from selfishness and fear? Did I use my resources wisely or waste them carelessly? Did I treat all beings with respect or did I cause unnecessary harm? Did I fulfill my responsibilities, or did I shirk my duties? For each area where you fell short of mat, don't just feel guilty, take specific action to correct the imbalance. If you spoke harshly to someone, apologize and make amends. If you wasted resources, make a commitment to be more mindful. If you caused harm, find ways to provide healing or assistance. Write down one specific action you'll take the next day to create positive karma and restore cosmic balance. This daily practice prevents the accumulation of karmic debt and gradually shifts your consciousness toward greater alignment with universal harmony. Hindu Karma Yoga, transforming all actions into spiritual practice. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that it's not the action itself that creates karma, but our attachment to the results of action. By performing all actions as offerings to the divine, rather than for personal gain, we can neutralize the karma-creating mechanism while still living fully engaged lives. Before any significant action throughout your day, take a moment to mentally dedicate the results to the highest good rather than personal benefit. Whether you're working, eating, exercising, or interacting with others, approach each activity as sacred service rather than personal achievement. This doesn't mean becoming passive or unmotivated. Rather, it means giving your best effort while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. You work diligently, but don't define your worth by your success or failure. You love deeply, but don't try to control or possess others. You engage fully with life while maintaining inner freedom. Advanced karmic purification through conscious suffering. This is a more advanced practice that should only be undertaken once you've established a solid foundation in the basic techniques. Ancient masters understood that voluntarily taking on difficulty for the benefit of others rapidly burns through negative karma while creating vast positive momentum. Look for opportunities to make sacrifices for the benefit of others, not in a self-pitying or martyr-like way, but with genuine joy and compassion. This might mean giving up comfort to help someone in need, accepting criticism without defending yourself when it serves a greater purpose, or taking on additional responsibilities to reduce others' burdens. The key is that this suffering must be consciously chosen and motivated by love, not imposed by circumstances or driven by guilt. When you voluntarily accept difficulty for others' benefit, you're aligning with the same principle that drives all spiritual evolution, the willingness to transcend self-centered concerns for the sake of universal well-being. But even if you master consciousness transfer and settle all your karmic debts perfectly, there's still a critical phase that trips up even advanced practitioners. Ancient masters called this the realm of infinite deception, and it's a phase where your consciousness will be bombarded with visions so convincing, so emotionally compelling, that most souls completely forget everything they've learned and get swept away by appearances. Falling for these deceptions could trap you in lower realms for thousands of years, but ancient masters developed specific techniques for maintaining clarity through this ultimate test of spiritual preparation. Picture yourself in the moments after death. Your consciousness has successfully transferred out of your physical body, but now you find yourself in what feels like a vivid, hyper-real dream state. You encounter beings of light, deceased relatives, and landscapes that seem more real than physical reality ever did. Here's where most souls make the fatal mistake. They react with the same emotional patterns and mental habits they had in life. They're attracted to familiar people and repelled by frightening visions. They follow their desires and fears, not realizing these reactions are determining their next incarnation. But imagine instead that you recognize this intermediate state for what it is, a crucial navigation phase where your consciousness can actually choose its next existence based on wisdom rather than unconscious reaction. You've trained for this moment, and instead of being swept away by appearances, you use this opportunity to progress toward liberation. The third universal truth is what I call intermediate state navigation. The Tibetans called this realm the Bardo, the Egyptians called it the Duat, and the Greeks referred to it as the space between incarnations. Every tradition recognized this as a distinct phase of existence where consciousness experiences visions and encounters that determine its next destination. The Tibetan Bardo Thodol provides the most detailed map of this intermediate state, describing three distinct phases: the moment of death, the realm of experiencing reality's true nature, and the realm of seeking rebirth. The Egyptian Book of the Dead similarly describes the soul's journey through various chambers and tests in the Duat. Ancient Greek mystery schools prepared initiates for navigating the realm between lives. The key insight all traditions shared: this intermediate state is not passive waiting, but active navigation, where your level of consciousness determines your experience and ultimate destination. Here's how you can train for intermediate state navigation starting today. First, practice lucid dreaming techniques. Ancient masters knew that dreams are the closest approximation to the intermediate state experience. Use reality checks throughout your day. Ask, "Am I dreaming?" and examine your hands or look at clocks. This builds the awareness needed to recognize the intermediate state when you encounter it. Second, study the Tibetan practice of dream yoga. When you become lucid in dreams, practice transforming the dream environment through intention alone. Change frightening scenes into peaceful ones. Multiply yourself into different forms and practice moving through solid objects. These skills directly translate to intermediate state navigation. Third, meditate regularly on the impermanent nature of all appearances. Spend 20 minutes daily watching your thoughts, emotions, and sensations arise and pass away. This trains you to recognize that all experiences in the intermediate state are also temporary, appearances that don't need to control your choices. Now you might think mastering these first three principles is enough, but there's something ancient masters discovered that goes beyond just surviving the afterlife transition. There's a way to actually use death as the ultimate spiritual accelerator, but it requires understanding something about consciousness that modern science is only beginning to glimpse. Imagine that death offers a unique window of opportunity that only occurs during the transition process. A moment when consciousness is so flexible and expanded that enlightenment becomes possible in an instant. Most people waste this opportunity because they don't even know it exists. In one scenario, you die unconsciously, swept away by fear, confusion, or attachment. You miss the greatest spiritual opportunity available to human consciousness and continue the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth indefinitely. In the other scenario, you recognize death as what the Tibetans call the clear light experience, a moment when your consciousness touches its fundamental nature without any obstacles. You use this moment to achieve complete liberation, ending the cycle of rebirth forever. The fourth universal truth is the liberation opportunity window. Advanced practitioners in every tradition understood that the moment of death offers unparalleled access to enlightened consciousness. The Tibetan tradition teaches that everyone experiences the clear light of death, a brief moment when consciousness recognizes its true nature without mental obscurations. The Egyptian mysteries prepared initiates for what they called becoming an Auk, a perfected being who could consciously navigate between worlds. The Hindu tradition recognizes the moment of death as offering direct access to Brahman, ultimate reality. Greek mystery schools taught that properly prepared souls could achieve Henosis unity with the divine at death. But here's the crucial point. This liberation opportunity only lasts for a brief window. Ancient texts suggest anywhere from a few moments to several days, depending on the individual's level of preparation. Here's how you can prepare to recognize and utilize the liberation opportunity window. First, practice the Tibetan meditation on the clear light. Sit in complete darkness and focus on the awareness that knows darkness. Don't try to see anything, just rest in pure knowing itself. This familiarizes you with the clear light that becomes obvious at death. Second, study the Egyptian practice of dying before death. Regularly lie in complete stillness and silence, allowing your sense of personal identity to dissolve while maintaining clear awareness. Practice letting go of all mental activity while staying fully conscious. Third, cultivate what Buddhists call recognition of the nature of mind. Throughout your day, periodically ask, what is aware of this experience? Turn attention back to awareness itself, rather than the contents of awareness. This trains you to recognize consciousness in its pure state. But here's something that might shock you. Even if you miss the liberation opportunity at death, ancient masters discovered there's still one more chance to influence your next life in ways that could set you up for success across multiple incarnations. But this requires understanding the most closely guarded secret of the mystery schools. Most people believe that reincarnation is random, that you helplessly get swept into whatever circumstances karma determines. But this leaves you at the mercy of unconscious forces, potentially cycling through lifetimes of limitation and suffering. Ancient masters knew better. They understood that consciousness retains some degree of choice, even in the process of taking rebirth. But this choice only becomes available to those who understand the mechanism and have trained their consciousness accordingly. Imagine having some influence over the circumstances of your next birth choosing parents who will support your spiritual development, selecting a time and place conducive to awakening, even influencing your natural talents and capabilities. This isn't fantasy. It's what advanced practitioners in multiple traditions claim to achieve. The fifth universal truth is the incarnation choice mechanism. Advanced Tibetan practitioners, called tulkus, demonstrate this principle by consciously choosing their rebirths and maintaining continuity of memory across lifetimes. The Egyptian pharaohs and high priests prepared for what they called conscious rebirth through elaborate funeral practices. Hindu and Buddhist traditions recognize that highly developed souls can influence their rebirth circumstances. The key insight: while karma influences the general range of possibilities for your next birth, consciousness can still exercise choice within that range. The level of choice available depends on your degree of awareness and preparation. Ancient texts describe souls in the intermediate state encountering what appear to be couples in sexual union. These represent potential birth circumstances. Unprepared souls are drawn unconsciously by attraction or aversion. Prepared souls can consciously evaluate options and make informed choices. Here's how you can develop the capacity for conscious rebirth choice. First, practice the Tibetan technique of Phao consciousness transference. Visualize your consciousness as a white light in your heart, and practice shooting it out through the crown of your head. This trains your consciousness to move deliberately, rather than being swept along by unconscious forces. Second, develop what Buddhists call pure motivation. Regularly contemplate taking rebirth not for personal gain, but to help other beings achieve liberation. This altruistic motivation is said to attract favorable rebirth circumstances and supportive conditions for spiritual practice. Third, create detailed visualizations of ideal rebirth scenarios. Spend time imagining being born into circumstances that would maximize your spiritual potential, supportive family, access to teachings, natural inclination toward wisdom and compassion. Ancient masters taught that clear intention during life influences the choices available at rebirth. Now, you might be wondering, this all sounds incredible, but how do I know if any of this is actually real? That's exactly what I thought before. I discovered the shocking modern scientific evidence that's validating what ancient masters knew thousands of years ago. For centuries, Western culture dismissed these ancient teachings as primitive superstition. We assumed our materialist view of consciousness was more advanced and accurate. But what if we've been wrong about the fundamental nature of consciousness and death? In one scenario, you dismiss these ancient insights as fantasy, live unprepared for death, and potentially waste the greatest spiritual opportunities available to human consciousness. In the other scenario, you recognize that cutting-edge research is now providing scientific support for principles that ancient masters discovered through direct experience thousands of years ago. Modern research is providing unprecedented validation for ancient afterlife teachings. Dr. Ian Stevenson's decades of research at the University of Virginia documented over 3,000 cases of children with verified memories of previous lives, including specific details that proved accurate upon investigation. Near-death experience research by scientists like Dr. P. van Longel has documented consciousness continuing during clinical death, experiencing realms that match ancient descriptions of intermediate states. Studies of terminal patients show common patterns of visions and experiences that align remarkably with ancient maps of the dying process. Quantum physics is revealing that consciousness may be fundamental to reality rather than produced by brain chemistry, exactly what ancient masters taught. Research into psychedelics is showing that consciousness can access non-ordinary states that closely resemble ancient descriptions of afterlife realms. Here's how you can investigate this evidence yourself. First, study the documented cases of reincarnation research. Read Dr. Ian Stevenson's work and the ongoing research at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies. Look for patterns that match ancient teachings about consciousness survival. Second, explore consciousness research from scientists like Dr. Eben Alexander, Dr. P.R.M. Van Lommel, and Dr. Bruce Grayson. Notice how their findings align with ancient maps of consciousness and afterlife states. Third, if you're open to direct experience, consider participating in legal consciousness research with substances like psilocybin or DMT under proper supervision. Many participants report experiences that closely match ancient descriptions of otherworldly realms and consciousness transfer. But there's one final piece that brings all of this together. Something so practical and powerful that it could transform not just how you die, but how you live every single day. Ancient masters didn't just prepare for death. They used this knowledge to unlock extraordinary capabilities in life. Most people compartmentalize death preparation as something they'll deal with later when they're older or sick. But ancient masters understood that preparing for death is actually the key to living with maximum freedom, purpose, and power right now. Without this integration, you might gain intellectual understanding of afterlife principles, but fail to develop the actual consciousness capabilities needed when the moment comes. You'll remain unprepared for the ultimate test of everything you've learned. But when you integrate death preparation into daily practice, something remarkable happens. You begin to live with a depth of presence, clarity of priorities, and freedom from fear that most people never experience. You develop capabilities that serve you both in life and death. The seventh universal truth is daily practice integration. Every ancient tradition emphasized that preparing for death is actually the foundation of wisdom living. The Egyptian concept of living in mat, the Tibetan practice of viewing all experience as bardo, the Greek maxim, practice dying, all recognized that death preparation is life preparation. Ancient masters developed daily practices that simultaneously prepared them for death while enhancing their current existence. These practices develop qualities like present moment awareness, non-attachment to outcomes, compassion for all beings, and direct recognition of consciousness capabilities that transform both living and dying. Here's your comprehensive daily practice for integrating ancient death wisdom into modern life. Morning practice. Begin each day with the Egyptian sunrise invocation. Face east and declare your intention to live this day in alignment with cosmic harmony. Practice the Tibetan meditation on impermanence. Contemplate that this could be your last day alive, and let this awareness clarify your priorities. Throughout the day, practice the Greek reminder, memento mori, remember death. Set phone reminders every few hours to pause and contemplate the temporary nature of your current experience. Use this awareness to approach challenges with greater perspective and relationships with deeper appreciation. Evening practice. Conduct the Egyptian daily review of Mat. Assess how your actions today aligned with truth, harmony, and compassion. Practice the Tibetan dream yoga preparation. Set intention to recognize dreams as practice for the intermediate state. Weekly practice. Spend 1 hour each week studying ancient afterlife texts, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Egyptian Book of the Dead, or Greek mystery teachings. Apply their insights to current life situations. Monthly practice. Conduct a deeper life review. Examine your relationships, career, and spiritual development through the lens of what truly matters from a deathbed perspective. Make necessary adjustments to align with your deepest values. So that's how ancient masters from completely different civilizations all discovered the same profound truths about what happens beyond death, and more importantly, how this knowledge can transform your life right now. But everything I just shared with you is incomplete without understanding the one crucial mistake that causes most people to forget all these principles the moment they actually face death. It's a phenomenon that ancient masters called the Great Forgetting, and avoiding it requires a specific type of preparation that goes beyond everything we've discussed today. If you want to learn about this great forgetting and discover the advanced preparation techniques that ensure you remember these teachings when you need them most, Click on this video where I reveal the secret practices that only the highest level initiates in ancient mystery schools were taught. This knowledge could mean the difference between conscious transcendence and unconscious recycling through endless lifetimes of confusion. But before you go, I want to know, which of these 7 ancient principles resonates most strongly with you? Drop a comment below and share which teaching you're most excited to integrate into your daily practice. Your insights could help guide future videos on this profound topic. And if this video has opened your eyes to possibilities you never considered before, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I'm planning an entire series diving deeper into each of these ancient traditions and their specific techniques for death preparation and consciousness development. Remember, death is not the end of your story. It's the most important chapter. The ancient masters knew this, and now you do too. The question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge?